right, ladies and gentlemen, there is no better way here than to kick the weekend off and to get your fix of all the latest happenings here in the world of professional wrestling, especially in the UK, with one of our very, very dear friends. And ladies and gentlemen, it's been a hot skip in a minute since we've had him on Sportswire Radio, but I promise you, this one is going to be worth it. Because when I think about the history of the Sports Report and Sportswire Radio, he has always been one of my all-time favorite guests. He has been with us many, many times, but this might be his most important segment yet with us here, because we're going to be talking about next weekend's 10th year anniversary show. When it comes to KOW Knockout Wrestling, they are certainly delivering a knockout since 2012 and beyond. And we are speaking, of course, with ALP. We're going to run down the 10th year anniversary card here, plus much, much more with him. So let's get right to it. So, what do I do here on the Sports Report? Number one global sports show, the heart and soul of KOW, booker and promoter. His name is ALP. My friend, how are you?
I'm doing good, buddy. You put some stank on that one.
I tried, because you have done literally everything. You've done the commentating, you've done the ring announcing, you've done the podcasting. You're all right with our boys, the Parts Unknown guy, which I've been wondering, how the hell are they? But you've done it all. And of course, the reason we wanted to put our heart into it, because you, my friend, have put your heart and soul into KOW, because next weekend, after all, everything that's going on here, we have finally gotten to that date, the 10th year anniversary show. So before we get into the card, you know I got to ask you, Mr. ALP, what does it mean to you finally next weekend to be back home in Barrow for the 10th year anniversary show of KOW?
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. I think it was today, actually, I had, my Facebook memories of me talking about our first show back after lockdown, Resurrection, and talking about that. And it feels weird that it's been a year since then already. It really doesn't feel like it's been that long. When we got to the 5th anniversary show, that seemed like a crazy milestone. I think this one feels more special because of lockdown, because obviously having to go through that and come out the other side of it. The 5th anniversary show, of course, was huge. But I think, the fact that we've managed to come back. We've managed to, carry right on from where we left off, which is what, we'd spoken about. I think the first time we ever spoke was, when we were coming back, what do we want to do, was just carry on doing what we did. So, yeah, it's really special. I had to unfortunately miss the last show for personal reasons. So, it's going to be nice for me to be back. And, yeah, I think all KOW shows, we always say KOW is like a family, and all of them, people have fun, they're always emotional, in different ways. We always enjoy them. But I think a show like this, with all the history we've got, with the mix of people we've got, from people who, like me, who've been there from day one, people who've come through the academy and been there a long time, like Luke Sneon or Will Carter, or even people that, have only been with us since the start of the year. I think everyone is really excited for it. And that's something we're proud of as well, that, people like a Brian Ainson or an RPD or a Lance Rivera, who might have only been on a handful of shows, over the whole lifetime of KOW. I like to, they seem to genuinely enjoy being on the shows. I think they enjoy the experience and enjoy the fans and how, into everything they are. So I think it's going to be a big deal. I'm already getting myself ready for a big pre-show speech and all that sort of thing. And I know when I come out of the show, it's going to be emotional. I'm sure there's going to be some emotional moments on the night. There's a couple of, surprises that are potentially going to be lined up and could happen on the night. I want to try and make sure we get to acknowledge some of the lesser appreciated people in KOW, which is something we did at the 5th anniversary show as well. So that's something I've got in mind, because, on shows, you see the wrestlers, you see me because I'm ring announcing and that sort of thing. But, there's so many people over the last 10 years who've contributed something to KOW, who don't get that same limelight, whether it be, the referees, people who work the merch, people who work security, sound, lighting, people who just support us by selling tickets or promoting us. There's lots of people who have helped us to get here, not just the people that the fans see in the ring, fighting out. Obviously, they're the main attractions, that's what sells the tickets, but there's a lot of people that we're very lucky to have as friends and have working with us. A lot of people who give up their time, people who do things for free for us just because they like KOW and want to support us. So yeah, it's going to be really cool. I'm really happy with how everything's come together. When we spoke previously, I think maybe the first time we spoke, we talked about 10th anniversary show.
Yeah, we spoke about it, and I was thinking about this, and so I'm glad you brought this up here. ALP is we spoke the first time. It was obviously during COVID, unfortunately, everything that was going on in the world, and I'd asked you, what is it going to be like when you eventually get to that day? I know at that time when I asked you that question, it was like nobody could even think when we didn't know what was going to happen and how long this was going to last. We were just hoping one day people could go out and watch wrestling and be normal. But now that we've actually gotten to this point, from let's say a year and a half ago, the first time that we spoke, to where we are now, I mean, have you kind of pinched yourself, or have you kind of gone to, you know what, wow, it's finally here? I mean, now that we're here almost to the moment, I mean, how you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we've talked about before about how we're always looking ahead and we always want to have an idea of, where things are going, and that, we've been thinking about this for a long time. And I think especially with the timing of when we came back and it being, it was like, right, it's 1 year from now when it's going to be happening. It was a case of, even I think the first show back, there was already, in terms of when we were promoting it and stuff, it was already being mentioned. And that was something we wanted to do, because it's such a big show, not to disparage any of the other anniversary shows we've done, but obviously, a lot of the time that talk sort of shows up road to goal time, when it's getting there. But, all this year, there's been talk of that is coming. That's the end goal. People, even if they're not in title matches, if they win or lose, they might end up in one on the biggest show that we've ever done, so the stakes have been a lot higher in terms of, win-loss records and people having rivalries and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's, I'm looking at, we've got this weekend, Wednesday, I'll be traveling back to Barrow, busy getting stuff prepared. And then, yeah, it's on Saturday, it's only a week away. We've really pushed hard on promoting this show. I'm sure if you've seen on Facebook, we've had something every day, loads of videos, match announcements, graphics.
Twitter as well, we've definitely seen Twitter heat up the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, exactly. So we've really been trying to make sure that this show lives up to the expectations that we've set for ourselves. And I'm sure the fans have, people who come to our shows know the level of quality that we put on and how much care we put into it. And, like I say, this is it. We'll only have one 10th anniversary show. We can't have a do-over in 3 months' time. We can't have a do-over next year. It needs to be as good as possible. And the 5th anniversary show was very similar. We put a lot of work into it and we were very, very happy with how it went. And I think this is going to be the same. Everyone's been pulling together to promote it. Obviously Commissioner Steele / Sheriff Steele has been working very hard to put together a great card. Like I say, we've been working really hard to make sure it's a packed house, that the crowd are even louder than they ever are, and there's even more people in there.
And they're always loud and bad. Listen, Cloud9 in the Lounge, and I've always said this here before, that Cloud9 in the Lounge is a lot different than a lot of other places. There's something about that place. There's something about the intimacy of that place there. So I have no doubt it is going to be a loud and proud crowd, to say the least, here at Cloud9 in the Lounge. But I mean, 10th anniversary show, I mean, I gotta almost feel like it's almost like that segment on Raw where it was The Rock and Mankind, This Is Your Life, where it's gonna almost be like, this is your life, ALP. You're probably gonna see people, now don't tell us, but you're gonna see people that were probably there at the first show or the first year or throughout the years that are gonna be there because this is such a big deal. So I almost have to feel like it's like a combination of, like, I don't know, high school graduation or This Is Your Life. I mean, I'm sure that's gonna also be a big part of the show as well, no?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's a third of my life that I've been, involved with KOW. So
it's a long time.
Exactly. So, I can think back to past shows and think of different times in my life, and a lot's changed in that 10 years, like 10 years ago, I was working at McDonald's and living in Barrow, and, now I'm working in a much better job and I've moved away, and, other people from Barrow have moved away. And now there's, people who started out in Barrow, like your Two Bits and your Will Carters and those sorts of people who are in the same area as me. You've got Chris Ridgway, who started on our first show, who's now,
have a guy right now in the WWE, technically, who's sort of here with us.
Yeah, exactly. So, we've come really far. We've spoken before about sometimes it's almost hard to like stop and smell the roses when you're promoting wrestling shows, because if you've got 5 shows a year, like for Road to Gold, the show before that we'll have done that show, and then it's right couple of days to like chill out, bask in it a little bit.
Right.
But then it's right now we need to start promoting Road to Gold, and then so the anniversary shows are nice because it's we get our little like longer Christmas break that we get, because we usually go November and March, which is like the longest gap we have. So the anniversary shows have always been a good time to kind of reflect. It's obviously a chance to look back on the past year, but with it being such a big one, it's looking back on all of them. And I've really enjoyed, obviously, because we've had like the flashbacks on Facebook for all the previous anniversary shows. So that was fun, just looking back and looking at those cards and remembering what happened on those shows and seeing the different people we've worked with. So yeah, it's a celebration of doing it for 10 years. It's a celebration of the love of wrestling and the love of our hometown. It's a celebration of how far people have come, how much people have developed, how we've developed. We started out as, basically our group of people and a couple of other people that we knew. And now we've got, people traveling from all throughout the Northwest. We've got fans who are traveling to Barrow for the show. Whereas previously it was, largely just people from Barrow and the surrounding area that came. So yeah, it's I can't think of anything else to compare it to in my life in terms of, looking at it. Obviously, running the show itself can be stressful sometimes, and I'm not going to say that running a wrestling promotion is the easiest thing in the world, because it's not, of course.
Oh no, it's like herding cats almost. That's kind of the old expression.
Yeah, or herding wrestlers sometimes I have to. But
true.
yeah,
Fair point.
But yeah, so yeah, it's really cool. Hopefully we're going to be able to do it for another 5 years, and then another 5 years after that, and keep going. It's a lot of companies don't make it out of a couple of years, so just getting to 10 years is a big accomplishment. And yeah, I'm proud of myself for being involved and helping it grow. I'm proud of everyone that's involved. I'm proud of those who've spread their wings and gone on to do bigger things and were part of our company. So yeah, it's really cool. I think the closer we get, the more it'll creep up on me, probably up to the point I'm standing behind that curtain ready to come out. And when I do come out, so I think it means a lot to the fans as well, and that means a lot to us. People like Mother Sue we've talked about before, people like Louis.
Love Mother Sue. Love Mother Sue.
Exactly. So there's people who've been there since day one. Louise obviously only started coming a few years ago, but obviously he's a big part of it. And I sort of look at those people as like symbolic, because obviously they're not the Sue isn't the only person who's been to every show, and Louis isn't the only kid who's really into the shows. But it's nice having like that sort of representation. That I like, because when I look at Louis, I'm like there are lots of other kids at our shows like you, and I can't go up to every kid and be like, oh, hiya, how are you? Did you enjoy the show? Like it's not, there's just not time to do that. But in an ideal world, sure, I'd love to know all the fans and get to talk to them all, and find out what they like and what they don't like, and that sort of thing. But it's just not feasible when you're trying to run wrestling shows.
And I think it speaks to the company's success here as well with ALP, of course, our dear friend, the heart and soul booker and promoter, and pretty much everything else about KOW. Now, you can follow KOW here on Facebook at KnockoutW, KO_wrestling on Twitter, K_O_wrestling on Instagram, and of course, ALP streams on Facebook and Twitter, as we are speaking about the historic 10th anniversary show, the 10th year of Knockout Wrestling, which takes place next Saturday at Cloud 9 in the lounge here in Barrow. And I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryson. Of course, before we get to the card, I always think about Lucy, our dear friend. Also, got to mention Lucy as well, because Lucy's always going about and doing great things, and want to give her a shout out. But I also got to imagine also coming up here next Saturday in Cloud 9 in the lounge that we'll definitely see some surprises. Now, don't tell us some of the surprises, because obviously that's why they're surprises. But I mean, anything that when it comes to a surprise that the fans will really be taken back, or they'll all be special.
I think there's a couple of things the fans are going to like. There's some things, there's one that, there's one surprise that people know will happen. There may well be one or two more, again, don't want to talk about it too much. But yeah, I think, because that's the fine balance as well, is, you want to make sure you have something to surprise people and people to, be legitimately shocked by, or surprised by, but you also, you can't keep everything a surprise, because otherwise, you haven't got anything to promote for the show. So yeah, I think obviously, like I say, there's the one that the people are aware there's going to be a surprise, but Commissioner Steele, he loves having something up his sleeve. He's done it a few times over the
He
years.
always does, but there's always something about Commissioner Steele. Commissioner Steele always knows what to do, especially the last couple of shows, because I feel like now he's been under the gun the last couple of shows, because obviously we see everything that's going on with the underclass and the freak show. We'll get into some of that as well, and certainly our new champion in KOW, Big Guns Joe. So there is a lot, I'm sure, that he's going to have to put up with. Plus, we'll even put up or talk about that the fact that he's going to be in the ring, or well, Sheriff Steele is going to be in the ring. It's almost like the three faces of Foley when it comes to Steele. We'll definitely get into that here in a little while as well, but I want to obviously now talk about the card a little bit. I want to run down some of these different matches, and the first match that I want to talk about here, which is kind of an interesting match, going off the surprises, is Keenan versus a mystery opponent for the Showcase Championship, or trophy as we may refer to it here in KOW. I mean, intriguing match. I mean, when I think about wrestlers, I guess since we've come back from COVID, Keenan's one of those guys. I've seen him in different companies. I've seen what he can do in the ring, and he's just a phenomenal worker. And just another reason why KOW is in the position it's in. And I mean, what can we expect here? I mean, we've had Keenan in some really, really big matches this year. He's done really a phenomenal job in just what he can do in the ring. I know, obviously, he's a part of things with the underclass, but what can we expect here in this match? And don't tell us who he's wrestling, because this is one of the surprises.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Keenan, like say, he's still undefeated since he joined KOW. I think now he's 6-0. I want to say.
Yeah.
I think that's right, because obviously he had the show where he did, he won 2 matches on the same night.
Yep.
He's been Showcase champion from his second show. He has relied on, either taking advantage of situations or, outright cheating at some point. But there is no taking away from his talent. Obviously I've got to see him wrestle in KOW, I've got to see him wrestle elsewhere, and he always puts on a great performance.
I see him in the LWF, which we do a lot of coverage. I mean, he's really been a big, big, big guy that is just shown his ring ability carries him to these other companies.
Yeah, exactly. And then, like say, he has done really well. The list of people he's beat is, really impressive. Lucas Neon, Big Guns Joe, RPD, Lee Dawson, so it's not like, he's beating, not naming anyone, but easy opponents or anything like that. He's faced off with the best that the company has to offer, really. So I think for Commissioner Steele, it was a case of again, he doesn't really like the underclass. Again, Keenan, you could argue, has managed to get away with the trophy a couple of times, and if things had gone a bit differently, he could have lost it. So I think for Steele, it's a combination of wanting to have something to surprise the fans and hopefully make them happy, but then also to further test Keenan and sort of see, right, okay, you've beaten these people I've put you against, but when you're face to face with someone, you have no time to prepare, no time to study, no time to strategize. Can you still get the job done? Obviously Steele said, it's a returning KOW legend, so it's not somebody brand new to the company. It's somebody who's been on KOW shows before. So, as with the 10 years of KOW, it could be anyone. You're talking about probably dozens of people that it could potentially be. So it's going to be really interesting just to see, who's going to step through that curtain, how the fans going to react to whoever it is, how's Keenan going to react, in these sorts of situations. Again, as well, is it going to be somebody who might not have been in the ring for a while? It might be somebody who's coming back who hasn't been active. It could be, I'm just trying to, plucking names out of the air, but, Sam Gradwell, he used to wrestle for KOW. I'm trying to think who else, Chris Brooks. I think he's in Japan, but you never know. But I'm fairly sure he's in Japan. But King Ryan Grayson. We haven't seen him in a very long time.
That's a name that we've spoke about on Sportswire Radio in the past. That is a name that would be a very, very intriguing opponent, because obviously his history with Commissioner Steele. But that would be a little. But you never know. I mean, listen, there's certainly a point there, but we'll speculate the names, I'm sure, later on further. And I don't want to speculate to too many names, because then we'll eventually find out and figure out who it is. But for Keenan in his spot, I have to say this has to really put him on his toes, because I know he's got big wins, RPD, Dynamite Lee Dawson. I mean, there's no question that he's definitely beaten some really, really big competition.
Mhm.
Lucas Neon, of course, the former champion, who we'll get into later on, he'll be in the main event. But this has got to really, I think, if you're Keenan, really put you on your toes, because even though you've had all this success in KOW, you don't know who you're going to be facing off with.
Yeah, exactly. And, that's a challenge for anyone. I think the other thing as well is the underclass with the changes that have happened recently. If things don't go well, if Keenan did end up losing, if, Decker and Logan don't end up winning their match later on, they've already sort of lost numbers, so you could argue they're weaker than they've been in a long time. No disrespect to any of the three men in that group, because they're all still, formidable wrestlers. But, when you go from 5 to 3, when you lose the heavyweight champion, when you lose the Rat Queen Jennifer, who's a real X factor for the underclass, that puts pressure on them. Decker at the last show, made out, everything's fine under new management, but everything's fine. But that house of cards could keep falling down. And if Keenan, who now you would argue, is the crown jewel, so to speak, of the group, if he gets knocked off, that's going to be,
Hey, listen, the underclass could have almost no gold at all. Now, they could have the showcase and the tag titles, but there's always that possibility they could have none. Or maybe the underclass finally get those tag belts and Keenan loses. So there's kind of like a number of different hypotheticals here where if you're the underclass, I think that's going to be the wild card here next weekend at Cloud9 ALP, is that right now the underclass, we don't know. Are they going to be severely weakened? Are they going to be emboldened? Or, I mean, I think that's a big wild card, a big unknown here next weekend.
Yeah, and how the order of the matches plays out could come into it as well. So, if the tag title match happens first and the underclass lose that, is that going to then put more pressure on Keenan? So that's something to think about. Or if Keenan goes first, is he going to be thinking, right, well, if I don't win, then, then yeah, there is a chance we are going to leave with nothing. And he knows if he does win, okay, if I keep the trophy, we're going to leave with something. So either way, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Keenan's shoulders. I mean, obviously, if the tag match goes first and he wins, then he might take the foot off the gas a little bit and think, okay, well, we've got the tag titles now. So, there's numerous different ways it could go, really. And like that's a thing as well, a lot of the time, especially with, groups. If you're an individual and you're wrestling by yourself, you just have your match. That's all you have to think about. But if you're Keenan or if you're Logan and Decker, you have to think about what's going to happen with the other guy in our group, and then the knock-on effect that's going to have on them. Of course, there's always the numbers game. The underclass love the numbers game. So, that's something that could come into play as well. And again, they could, Decker and Logan might decide, well, we want to make sure we have all the titles, so we're going to get involved. That could happen. I mean, Commissioner Steele's going to be around. He's going to have his hands full a little bit on the night himself, as we'll talk about later. But I'm sure
we are going to talk about that here for sure. And I don't want to speculate on names because I have a name that could be a potential name out there for Keenan, but I still feel like that after what we had him on earlier this summer, I don't think he'd be the person, but I'm going to basically not say anything because I don't want to, certainly tip too much of my hand there. But I'll tell you one thing, regardless, Keenan, anytime he's in the ring, you definitely want to make sure you put your pounds up and you find a way to watch him in the ring because he is a phenomenal talent. He is one of those talents that I really believe in a couple of years is going to be just like a Chris Brooks or a Chris Ridgway or a guy that used to be called Pete Dunne. So something tells me here, I got a feeling Keenan is going to be joining those wrestlers one way or another. So definitely make sure you get out there and see the match. And speaking of the underclass, and let's talk about it because our friend, or maybe my friend, or maybe not my friend, that is the unforgettable Andre Decker, is always seemingly chasing those tag team championships, and we will see it once again here, the Freak Show and the underclass for the tag team championships here. And it seems like it's been kind of the common theme here this year. I think the two feuds I'll remember most about KOW this year is obviously going to be RPD and the Ronin Brian Anderson, which we'll get into next. But when it comes to the Freak Show and the underclass, that's the other feud. When I think of KOW memorable feuds this year, it's going to be the Freak Show and the underclass. Everything that's going on. I mean, Nightmare's hair, has it grown back? I don't know. I mean, and obviously the unhinged Will Carter. But, I mean, set the tables for us here because something tells me that the unforgettable Andre Decker is coming back to Sportswire Radio very, very soon. He's always got a lot to say. You know that. I know that. And I know that crowd in Barrow is going to be very curious to see what happens here in the tag team championship between the underclass and the Freak Show.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you said, it's been one of the feuds of this year, but then, this was even going on before lockdown happened. It seems almost since the underclass was formed that, they've always had something
This
going.
incarnation, no, is this year.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, you are right there. Yeah, 100%. But yeah, like say, when it was Decker and Jax, they had their own issues with the Freak Show, and that was actually who the Freak Show won the titles from. And like say, over the past year, the first show back, it was Decker and Keenan at the time, but they won a title shot that got delayed. Obviously, they then had the tag title tables match, which is a bit of a tongue twister, but we got through it. And that was a really incredible match. One of the biggest reactions we had all year at the end of that match. The crowd came unglued when the Freak Show managed to keep their titles. Obviously since then, Decker and Logan have stolen the tag titles, and they've had those for a few months now, because basically they were backed into a corner. Well, my interpretation of it is I think that they were backed into a corner, and they, realized that if they wanted to get these titles now, they're not going to be in contention. They just lost. So if they want to get themselves back into contention, make it personal and, steal the titles, what can make it more personal than that? So obviously at the last show, they were involved. Decker was in the tournament and he was wrestling Collins, and then Logan got involved, and then the Freak Show got involved, and that all backfired, and then that carried over to the final as well. So it's all been going on there. So yeah, these two teams really have, have had, locked horns for a very long time. I mean, if you're talking about, there's been 3 tag team champions in KOW history, Royal Justice, the Underclass, and the Freak Show. Those are the 3 tag teams. Obviously Logan wasn't in that tag team, but I think these two have really established themselves as the cornerstones of the tag team division. We've obviously had other teams, Hunter and Shawnee. Obviously we saw Aidenson and Rivera team up as well. So
that was an interesting team.
Yeah,
we had that here on Sportswire. We spoke about that earlier this year. That was an interesting team, to say the least.
Yeah, it was very interesting. It didn't go very well for them, but it was
obviously.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I mean, it's worked out this way, obviously, because of, like, say, the tag team titles being stolen. But if you were going to pick a tag match to have, it would be these two teams, really. They've both established themselves as being dominant forces. It's been very, very personal between them. They've had a table match previously. Obviously, now this is going to be a straight up match. My understanding of that is because apparently the underclass, have complained that they weren't pinned or submitted in that tables match, so they didn't technically lose. I mean, they did because it was a tables match, but you can see where they're coming from to some extent, but it sounds a little bit like an excuse to me. But, so this time it's going to be about who is the better tag team, not like they've said, who can throw, the other person through a bit of wood, but who is the better tag team, who's going to get the pin, who's going to get the submission, the knockout, whatever it might be. So, yeah, you've got the brute power of the underclass. They both don't mess around. They're powerful guys. They like that brawling style, no nonsense, knock your teeth down your throat, break your nose kind of style. Whereas obviously Nightmare, Will Carter, a bit more athletic, a bit more acrobatic, a bit more out there and kooky and crazy as well, that the fans love. Team the fans love more than anyone else. Team the fans hate more than anyone else. So, it makes sense. And I think it's going to be a really good match. Like, say, the first, straight up one-on-one tag team match these two teams have had against each other. And yeah, like, if you look at the whole card, I think any match on the card could steal the whole show, really. And this one has definitely got the potential to do that as well. There could definitely be some fireworks involved. And yeah, I'm really excited to see it, and see who will go into 2023 as the tag team champions, and will Freak Show's longest reign ever continue.
It's definitely been a long reign, and it's definitely an intriguing match always, because you hit the nail on the head. You've got that slow, prodding type of style that Decker certainly wants to bring to the table. We know Decker very well. We've seen him. We've had him here many times. Pretty much what you see from Decker is what you get, no matter where he is. Then you've got the Freak Show, which, again, are always fan favorites, and they kind of complement each other in a lot of ways, Nightmare and Will Carter. So you've almost got a contrast of two styles, and I think, obviously, at the end of the day, tempo is going to dictate this match, because I think that if the tempo goes underclass's way, it's going to be the underclass finding a way.
Mm-hmm.
But if the Freak Show can kind of keep Decker and can kind of keep him off his heels a little bit. I'm gonna say here that the Freak Show retain, but really, because like you said, it's the match that they're gonna go basically, I guess, 2-on-2 rather than 1-on-1. But there's no stipulation here; it's just a straight up match, and it can go either way. I really think here.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a toss up, like you say. I think the pace of the match is going to really play into it. If the underclass can get a foothold early and grind either Nightmare or Will Carter down, that's going to give them a massive advantage. Nightmare and Carter are going to want to keep things high octane, and with a lot of energy, because that's where they thrive. And yeah. Exactly like you said. I mean, you put it perfectly, to be completely honest. So it is going to come down to, it could be anything. It could be one moment, it could be one mistake, it could be a game plan that one team or the other comes in with. It's wrestling. Somebody, if somebody gets hurt or tweaks a knee or an elbow or something, that could come into it. Obviously, again, with the underclass, you've always got to talk about nefarious tactics and whether that's going to come up. I'd like to think that they want to prove they're the better team, because that's what they've been saying all this time, is that they're the better team. But as we've seen with the underclass, they'll often say that, but then they will still resort to breaking the rules to get what they want. So, yeah, I think Nightmare and Carter, have got the advantage as a team. I think they've got the most chemistry. Obviously, Nightmare helped to train Carter. They've known each other for a number of years.
They have a certain relationship that, when I think about tag teams, it's a very unique relationship. It's a different relationship. They've been, in a way, they haven't been together for 10 years, but they've kind of been together in some way or another. And Nightmare and Will Carter, it's almost, I don't want to say it's a mentorship, but in a lot of ways, there's a lot there. It's very special, and it's a personal relationship for whatever it's worth, considering they are the Freak Show, right? They certainly speak to each other in different ways that you and I couldn't. And you've got Decker and obviously here in his relationship, where it's kind of a newer team and it's a new incarnation, but certainly they bring a lot to the table. And we are here on Sportswire Radio with, of course, the heart and soul of KOW. There's, of course, our very dear friend, Mr. ALP. And if you like what you hear from us on Sportswire Radio, continue to give us a like and follow on Facebook at Sportswire Radio. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our great content on sportnarium.com/player. And also give us a like on Instagram at the Sports Report 2021. Also, YouTube now. We have our YouTube page up at Sportswire Radio, and my Twitter is at Thomas Price 2017. And continue to support KOW at Knockout W on Facebook, KO_wrestling on Twitter, K_O_wrestling on Instagram. You can find out to get tickets, of course, Cloud9, the lounge, our friends over at TNT Records. We know you can still buy a ticket from. Also, I know that there's a few other places as well that you can continue to buy tickets and get your tickets, and make sure you do it as soon as possible, because they literally are almost going to be not many left by the end of this weekend, but certainly for sure by next weekend. And of course, tickets you can also get by PayPal as well. Just go to the KOW links provided for more information, especially again, Knockout W Facebook, KO_wrestling on Twitter, K_O_wrestling on Instagram. And of course, we'll have more live coverage on Sportswire Radio coming up here tomorrow night with our friends over at Wrestling Championship Entertainment. We'll be speaking with Craven Rage and JDT, our new champions. Of course, JDT is the interstate champion, and Craven Rage is the reigning defending Wisconsinite Grand Slam champion. So we look forward to speaking with the Universal Grand Slam Wisconsinite champion, Craven Rage, and JDT also here tomorrow night. So we'll make sure we'll have more coverage of that as well. But in the meantime, we are here with our very dear friend, Mr. ALP. ALP, I got to talk about this match, because, this is a match we have promoted quite a bit here on Sportswire Radio. And next week, he is coming back on the air with us. You know who I'm talking about. That is the natural-born fighter, RP Davis, who I think at this point probably holds the record for most appearances in Sportswire history in terms of just coming on here with us. He will be in the house with us next week, just a few short hours before his huge match in a knockout versus tap-out match between himself and the Ronin, Brian Aidenson. When I think about feuds in pro wrestling, not just in KOW this year, this has been one of the more interesting, let alone personal feuds, I think, around. You could arguably have this match the main event. You could arguably have this as the opening match. This match is going to have so much fire, so much electricity. I think that this is going to be a match we're going to remember a long time, especially for a 10th anniversary show. It's going to have vibes. I don't know. I'm thinking Marcus Steele. I'm thinking Grayson Steele. It's going to be one of those feuds. I really think that we're going to remember in KOW history and talk about this match because I'm excited about it, and RPD is going to be back in the house with us next week.
Yeah, and I'm definitely going to make sure to tune in and listen to what RPD has
Oh,
to say ahead of
RPD,
the
you
show.
always got to make sure you tune in with RPD.
Definitely. So yeah, I mean, exactly like you say, it's been one of the sort of the hottest things going on this year, in KOW. It was sort of bubbling under for a little while, and then it exploded sort of midway through the year, and it's just built up since then. Obviously they had their debut match against each other, and I think we've discussed previously, we had RPD confirmed, and then we need someone else, and we'd been looking at Brian, and it was just a case of, well, if you've got former boxer RPD, martial arts expert Brian Aidenson, that just makes sense. Like, you're going to put that match together. Like, that just makes sense. So that was just how it started, is, okay, this will be cool. It's two people with legitimate fighting experience. It's two people, serious fighters and who can, really get it done in the ring. And obviously, RPD won, but that wasn't it. A lot of the times in wrestling, two people have a match and they go their separate ways, and that can be it. But this time, that wasn't the case. RPD was certainly ready to move on. RPD was certainly ready to look elsewhere and move up the card and, move towards titles. But Brian, just couldn't get past it and couldn't accept that he'd lost. He claimed that it was an illegal punch that was used that won RPD the match, even though, the Superman punch is one of his main moves and he uses it all over the place. But yeah, and it just continued to bubble under and bubble under. And, I think Brian felt that he wasn't being appreciated, that he'd been maybe disrespected by RPD, maybe by KOW management and that sort of thing as well. And then he decided, to hit RPD where it really hurts. He's a prize fighter. He's always been very honest that, he's in wrestling because he wants to win titles. And it seems like, every day he's inching closer and closer when he's in his first title in wrestling. But, Brian decided, right, I'm going to get involved in his match against Keenan. I'm going to, nearly knock him out with a brutal kick. And then, as if that wasn't enough, he's cost him his title shot. He cost him his unbeaten run in KOW. But, afterwards, he attacks his hand with a steel chair, gets suspended, and then, I'm sure RPD kind of wishes he wasn't suspended so he could get his hands on him. But, Brian missed Road to Gold. And then, again, Brian hit RPD where it hurt by, arranging somehow for his music to be played, distracting the natural born fighter, and him getting eliminated from the tournament. So, it seems like Brian's had a plan. He knew what he wanted to do. I think at first the dynamic was like, say that, RPD respect. I think there was mutual respect at first. And then after that first match,
Yeah, we kind of thought that when we had them on here, we thought it was going into that, but it doesn't seem like that at all.
No, and it seems like RPD came out of that match, relatively the same. He still had respect for his opponent, but he was ready to move on. And then Brian was the one who was angry and held a grudge, and was the one who wanted RPD, and Ryan, like I said, was happy to, okay, cool, what's the next challenge? Okay, right, I'm wrestling Rick Marcus, cool, right, title match, cool, yep, let's go. As he does, he's always pushing forwards onto the next thing. And then Brian has managed through this campaign of interference and attacks to swing things back, where it was then Ryan who now says, oh no, I want to wrestle Aidenson, instead of it being the way around. Suddenly it became that rather than Aidenson saying I want my match with the natural born fighter, it's RPD who say no, now I want this match as well. This is personal now. This isn't about a title. This isn't about anything else other than you've made this personal, you've cost me, and we're going to run this back. And obviously once Brian realized that he was in that position, once the Ronin knew, right, well, now he wants to wrestle me. Now, after all this time where I've wanted him and I've been ignored, now he wants me. And obviously that's when he said, right, if we're going to do this, then I want to tap out or knockout, presumably because he wants to prove, again, legitimate martial arts background, legitimate boxing background.
He said here with us when we had the Ronin Brian Aidenson, he felt that RPD, the punch was almost, whether it's on an unfair advantage, or he's also felt that, is he limited? Look at his background, look at what he's done, look at how he can fight. He kind of wanted this. I think that was something he implied with us many months ago.
Yeah, and I think he doesn't want to just prove that he's a better wrestler. He wants to prove he's a better fighter. And I think in his mind, if he wins this sort of a match, that proves that. He proves that not only am I the better wrestler than you, I can beat you at wrestling, but I can also beat you in a fight where, like say there are no pins, and it's literally just getting knocked out or tap out or that, go to sleep perhaps, but that's it. And I think in his mind he wants to sort of exercise that demon that was RPD. He wants to prove that he's been right all along. He wants to prove that he should have got that rematch. He wants to prove that he should have been the one in wrestling for the showcase title. He should have been the one in the Road to Gold tournament. He's always saying that RPD's been protected and he's the golden boy. He's had everything handed to him. Brian's made it clear that that's the way he feels about it, and I think he somewhere thinks he should be in that position, and he probably thinks that if I win this, if I knock RPD out, if I make him tap out, I've proven to myself, proven to the fans, proven to management, the rest of the roster, proven to everyone that I've been right this whole time, and I should have won that first match. I was cheated, and I should have had all these opportunities. So yeah, and I think Ryan on the last show, grabbed the mic and made it very clear that in no uncertain terms that he wanted his match with Brian. RPD's fighting for revenge in terms of, being cost his opportunities to be the showcase champion and then the heavyweight champion. And Brian, I think, is fighting to right that wrong and in his mind prove that he's better. And like you say, the first match was really good. It lived up to the anticipation we had beforehand. Like I say, it was their first match, but considering it's their first match in the company, fans loved RPD straight away, disliked Brian straight away, which I'm not sure what he was going for, but that was what happened. And they were really into it, and in a way that match made both of them. They both were full-time members of the roster. They've been here ever since, so they've been tied together for this whole year in a way. And it seems like the perfect way to close off the year for these two guys. And then, again, at the moment, all they're focused on is this personal issue. But, it's a big match. And if one of these guys wins, they're going to rocket themselves up the contention rankings.
And I think that's what's interesting about this match, because these two guys on their own are definitely title contenders, whether it's the showcase or the world title. And I almost feel like in a win here for either one is going to solidify themselves, like you said, to where next year, they're automatic. And we know that both of these guys on their own are contenders, and they kind of, in a way, they kind of are similar. They kind of fit each other in some ways. I mean, just in terms of their backgrounds, their fighting backgrounds, and maybe they come across with the fans in a different way. But in a lot of ways, these guys are like a yin and a yang. They almost kind of compliment you. They're like a Hobbs and a Shaw, and almost basically that they're basically like, this is kind of the match here where it's kind of poetic, and I'm sure that people in Barrow are going to find out why it's going to be. I think this is really the match that I think is going to really kind of maybe see where we go next year into who's that next challenger for whoever, when the dust settles, is our champions here next year in KOW.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, maybe if when they first came in, they were put together as a team rather than as opponents, maybe things could have been entirely different. Like say there are a lot of similarities there. So, in a different timeline, in an alternate universe, however you want to put it, you could imagine them being a team, and you could imagine them getting along, and that sort of thing. So, I think sometimes, fate just deals us a hand, and that's the way it works out. So, if like say if they hadn't wrestled each other that first show, maybe if it had been, oh, these guys are gonna, challenge the Freak Show, or these guys are gonna have a tag match, maybe it would have been that they've wrestled, that and who knows, that could have happened very easily.
Well, and I think that's what makes this match so enticing. And this is a match, again, they're all going to steal the show. There's no question. All 5 matches here certainly will stand out, and they all could be main events. But I think about it here. I think about, obviously, what has been said about RPD by the Rowan and Brian Nansen has been something that's been said here from other wrestlers that have come on Sportswire Radio, that have been in companies and promotions with the natural born fighter RP Davis. We also know the history between Commissioner/Sheriff Steele with the Rowan and Brian Nansen. So the Rowan and Brian Nansen certainly goes about it a different way. I don't know if that's the way that some people will go about it, but will it work for him? I don't know. We're going to find out next Saturday. I'll tell you that much. It's a match, again, that if I could, I would put my 7 pounds up and make sure I'm there. I would get there early, because that's a match. I'm telling you something. Listen, they're all going to be match stealers, but that's the match, ALP, that I think a lot of people are going to see. It's going to be, listen, it's got Bret Hart, Steve Austin vibes to it. It's got it's got Moxley MJF vibes to it. I mean, this match is really, it's going to be personal, and this is, I hate to say it, going to be one of the reasons why it's going to be a great match, because those feuds where they just don't like each other and you see the animosity, you see that they're on a crash collision course, you see everything that goes on between them this year in KOW, where they're denying each other a championship, so all the different situations that's going on here with management and everything else. This is the match, I got a feeling, that's going to find a way where people just listen, whatever you do, keep yourself seated, get the popcorn, buy the merchandise, do that before this match, because this is a match, I promise you, you're not going to want to miss. And another match, ALP, that I think a lot of people aren't going to miss, like the rest of this card, is this really, really exciting ladder match we're going to have here. Obviously, to decide who's going to hold the briefcase and the Vertigo ladder match here. It's such an intriguing match here. We've got 4 opponents that you couldn't really write a better script in 4 great participants in this match. I think management clearly, as always, knows what they're doing here. And that includes, of course, the War Machine, Craig Collins, the former KOW World Champion. Our very good friend, the Playboy Prince Lance Rivera, who is, by the way, the Wrestle Island World Champion, and he's always a factor in any company he's in. We've got Ravy Davy, who's certainly no stranger to us here in KOW, and this was kind of a shocker here to a lot of people in KOW. I know that fan base in Barrow is gonna just, I mean, they're gonna pop, they're gonna cheer like they've never cheered before. And this is always a loud crowd. That is, of course, our own commissioner, the legendary commissioner / Sheriff Steele, has put himself in this match. Is it a return for one night only? Is it return for more? I don't know. But these 4 participants, ALP, I mean, you've got to set the tables for us here, because he is back. He is our enforcer. He is the man that sets the justice. And he is back here for the first time in about 3 years in KOW. And I mean, what do you think about this match? I mean, because this match, I got to tell you, this is a match a lot of people in Barrow especially going to feel very emotional for, because Sheriff Steele returns for the first time in 3 years.
Yeah, the Vertigo ladder match, it's always a chaotic and crazy match. It's always a fun addition to the anniversary show. The fans really love it, and obviously we've had it on, I think, like every anniversary show pretty much we've ever done. So it's a real tradition now. Originally it was just meant to be a freeway. It was just meant to be Lance and Davey and Craig, and just that by itself, looked like it was going to be an incredible match. And we were all very excited for it. And then, of course, the bombshell dropped that, Sheriff Steele wasn't just going to be there as the commissioner. He was going to be returning to the ring for the first time in 3 years. Obviously, I, knew about it a little early, and I was just as excited, but I had my own little fan moment of being like, this is really cool. And I know there was some discussion, like we talked about surprises earlier, about whether this should be a surprise or whether. And Sheriff Steele was, very certain that he wanted, it to be known ahead of time, and for, people to know, because, people would have had a lot of questions if he just showed up, because obviously he lost that loser leaves KOW match, so there would have been, well, how's he back? What's happened? So I think that video that we saw was, him getting to make a statement of saying, I'm back in the ring, and giving some context. Obviously the last time we saw him and Rick Marcus together in the ring, they, shared a beer and seemed to mend some bridges a little bit, maybe not completely rebuilt, but they've definitely patched some of it up.
A mutual respect finally after everything, basically.
Definitely, yeah. And obviously, he says in that video that he, he's not just, decided I'm going to disrespect that stipulation that I agreed to. He's spoken to management and he's spoken to Rick, and, both parties have said, yeah, okay. I understand that basically management had said, if Rick, Rick was the person you had the stipulation with. So if it's cool with Rick, it's cool with us. Obviously, Rick's given his blessing. So yeah, it's perfect timing. As much as we would have had him there. You don't get on the laptop, you. Goodbye. Sorry, just talking about cat for any audio listeners there.
Hey, listen, Oakley's in the house.
But yeah, so
on Sportzwire without Oakley.
Definitely not. But yeah, so yeah, huge news. Obviously, like you said, he's a former heavyweight champion, former tag champion, former briefcase winner himself. partially responsible for there being tag titles in KOW. You know, he's been
Absolutely.
involved as the commissioner ever since we came back. So, you know, even though he's not been wrestling, he's been a big feature. I think he's done a really good job. You know, there's that saying that pressure creates diamonds, and he's, you know, definitely been put under some pressure in his commissioner role. And I think he's done really well. As, you know, somebody who used to be general manager myself, I know how challenging it can be. And yeah, and like he says in the video, you know, ever since he left, you know, he's training really hard. You know, he does a lot of weightlifting and, you know, sort of strongman style things.
God,
You know,
the shape that he's in, we've said this before when it comes to Commissioner Steele. The shape that he's in is just, I mean, he's really transformed himself. I mean, he's put himself actually in shape, condition-wise, to really, I think, be a serious factor, even though the 3-year absence. I mean, he's definitely, this guy, he could be like the next world's strongest man with the shape he's in at this point. I mean, it's so fascinating here and really just incredible. I think he's kind of revived himself and what he could be able to do. And these opponents are just all intriguing figures. I mean, Ravy Davey, we know here very well in KOW history. The War Machine, Craig Collins, is always a factor. I mean, he's somebody that you know is going to always have gold on his mind. Then you've got the Playboy Prince Lance Rivera. I mean, these are 4 different opponents, but yet all 4 of these opponents, ALP, they all could come away and come away with the ladder here and win the briefcase.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, like you say, we've got Lance Rivera, who, you know, like say is the current Wrestle Island champion. He's all over the place at the moment and doing really well. You know, he could certainly win it. Absolutely. Craig Collins is a former champion, 2-time former champion, former 2-time Road to Gold winner. You know, he's not had the best year, but, you know, we've seen it in KOW before. All he can take is one big win and it can turn everything around. And Ravy Davey, you know, out of these, you know, 4 guys in the match, he's the only one with a win this year. You know, he teamed up with Polish Barry and won his tag team match. So, you know, usually people might look at Davey and think, you know, he's a fun-loving guy. You know, he likes to dance, he likes to have fun. But, you know, he's a big guy. You know, he's tall, he's well built, you know, he's not to be messed around with, he can throw you around, he can get serious when he needs to. So, like I say, absolutely any one of them could win this match. You know, and obviously, you know, if you capture the briefcase, future title shot anytime if you're choosing, you know. So first of all, who's going to win? And second of all, when are they going to cash in? You know, it could be later on in the night, could be a year from now, could be a few months from now. But whatever happens, you know, there's some fascinating potential there. You know, Craig wins, you know, could that start his journey to being a 3-time, you know, the first ever 3-time heavyweight champion?
And he's wanted that title back. I mean, we saw the feud that he had with 2-Bit earlier this year. There's no question that the War Machine, Craig Collins, is going to definitely want gold once again. And the Playboy Prince Lance Rivera certainly wants gold in his own right. And Ravy Davies here. And then, of course, Commissioner Steele. I mean, what a story that would be. Commissioner Steele wins the briefcase there after a 3-year layoff, and he was pretty much out. We never thought he was going to be wrestling again here in Canada. I had asked you this question. You basically nobody saw this coming here. So, I mean, these 4 participants certainly, I mean, again, all speak for themselves in terms of what they could accomplish here. We're on Sportswire Radio here for a little while longer here, for about 20 or so more minutes with our very good friend, Mr. ALP, who, by the way, was on a podcast not too long ago that was with the Broken But Glorious podcast, I believe, with Chris Lappin, who's trying his own journey as a professional wrestler. So we know that ALP is making the rounds, promoting all the great things that KOW has, because they have their 10th year anniversary show coming up next Saturday at Cloud 9 in the Lounge here. Tickets are only £7, so make sure you go out there. You can buy those tickets either at TNT Records or on PayPal. We can do that at KO_wrestling, K_O_wrestling on Instagram, Knockout W on Facebook for more information. And I am the host of the Sports Report and the station manager of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryson. Let's get to it, because we spoke about the other 4 matches, and that leaves, I'm going to imagine here, ALP, the main event. And this is a main event that I think a lot of people, again, we've talked about all these matches. They're all standout matches. But this is a match that I think is going to be a special one here, because you've got Big Guns Joe, who is the world champion. But then we've got, arguably, I would say right now, maybe the most beloved wrestler in KOW. I know Steele's coming back. But you know I'm talking about Lucas Neon. And obviously this is it. This is Neon's last title shot. I mean, so if he doesn't win this here, I mean, he may never win the big one. and there's a lot in the line here. He's been in this spot before, Lucas Neon, so he's had some success. We've seen that here when it came to the Showcase Championship that he held for quite a while. But main event here, I would imagine, for the World Championship, Big Guns Joe, who's been a big-time superstar in many other companies. I've pretty much talked about Big Guns Joe pretty much everywhere. And Lucas Neon, always one of our favorites here on Sportswire Radio. And, I mean, this is going to be, to me, the definition of a banger, ALP.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, you've almost got the heavyweight champion versus, the people's champion, not to, steal too much from The Rock, but, that is what it is. Like you said, that there are many wrestlers in KOW very popular. Obviously, the Freak Show, beloved, RPD's beloved, Craig Collins. But if you're going to talk about who the fans love the most, it is Lucas Neon, and it has been for a long time now. Like you said, it's going to be his final chance at the title, and if he doesn't win, it's not that he doesn't get it. While Joe's champion, he just, that's it. He never gets another heavyweight championship match. Much like what ended up happening with Cody Rhodes in AEW in a way, I guess. But yeah, so it's again, it's two guys who've been intertwined all this year. Before, if I remember rightly, I think Lucas did show you during lockdown, and I think Joe was one of the people he mentioned that he wanted to wrestle.
Yes, we had Lucas on in the summer during COVID.
Yeah, so back then he said that he wanted it, and obviously when we came back, that ended up being the match. It was the Showcase title, Neon versus Joe. Neon would win there. They've crossed paths, again throughout the year in different multi-man matches and stuff. And then obviously, they were the final two in the tournament. Many people, including Lucy Simons, had picked that it was Lucas's time to finally win the title, win the tournament. It seemed like that was the way it was going to go, but Joe had other things in mind. The referee got that down. Steel chair got introduced. Early in the night, he'd said that, none of you take me seriously. You're all going to say this is an upset, but, I'm going to prove to you all that I'm the real deal. I'm not a joke. I'm not here to mess around. I'm here to be champion. And sure enough, again, not by the fairest of means, but he did fulfill that promise. He did prove everyone wrong, and I think a lot of the fans, had to swallow their own words. I know Lucy wasn't able to be there, and I know Lucy was very shocked at the outcome. So, and I think that was the overall reaction is shock, and it's intriguing because it's not like in the past when we've had, say, a Rick Marcus who'd been champion for like a year. Going into an anniversary show to defend the title against a beloved wrestler, like when he had the match against Nightmare and those, other examples I could bring up from KOW's past. Joe's just won the title. The belt's still warm. Like he's only just got the trophy. So you've got Joe, who we've talked about numerous times, incredible, wrestling all over the place. Has definitely taken things more seriously as of late, and I know he's making a real effort to sort of go down that path. You've got Lucas, who's beloved, and again, it's his last chance. And you can understand why. Again, one of the videos that went out, it was obviously Steel talking to Lucas, and they've got a long relationship. They've known each other. They're in the academy together.
I mean, that's a very emotional relationship because of the father, and Sheriff spoke about that, or Commissioner, and Lucas himself spoke about what Sheriff Commissioner Steel has meant to him. There's a very, very special bond, and we've seen Lucas Neon pretty much grow up before our very own eyes here in Barrow. That's what makes this such an intriguing, a very, very special match here, because again, we've seen Lucas Neon from when he was basically like a little boy to where he is now. That's what makes it so special here, I think.
Yeah, exactly. But even with that relationship, Steel had to say, look, you've had a duck egg this year. You haven't won. You've had multiple title matches. And even though we have this relationship, there's only so much I can do. We know that you want this match. We know that it got announced that would happen at the last show. But if I'm going to, go to my bosses and the people, higher above him and say, this is the match we're doing, then, they're going to want something. I can't just give you another match, because then they're going to think, I'm just playing favorites and that sort of thing. So, you had to say, look, I have to add this stipulation. And if you want it, that's it. It's your last shot, because, if we went on wins and losses, as much as I love Neon and as much as I think he's been treated unfairly a lot this year in terms of how matches have gone, if you were doing, a ranking system based on where he was, he wouldn't be in contention right now. And again, it's because of the love of the fans. It's because of his never say die attitude. It is the fact that, admittedly,
Well, he very much, in a lot of ways, I think, is kind of like the people of Barrow. He's a working class wrestler who's scrappy, he's tough, he's hardworking, he's likable, he's family oriented. I think in a lot of ways, when you think about champions back in the day in professional wrestling, there was always some type of quality that those champions had. And I think a lot of ways, AOP, that Lucas Neon is very similar to that. And I think that that's why his relationship with Barrow, with that audience, that crowd, Cloud9 in the Lounge, is very, very special. And I think that's why he's in this spot. He's in this spot, like you said, not because of his win-loss record, but he's in this spot because of that relationship that he has with that fan base.
Yeah, and I mean, like you say, I think a lot of the fans see themselves in Lucas, and a lot of the times in wrestling, you can gain as much in defeat as you gain in victory sometimes. I know that's definitely true for Lucas early on, especially. He won a lot of fans over with his determinateness. He wasn't winning a lot of matches, but he never stopped. He never gave up. He always kept pushing. He'd come close, and he might, for a moment, he might let it affect him, but he'd always come back stronger and optimistic and doing his best. And I think that is, like like the working class experiences. Sometimes, you've lost your job, or the energy prices are going up, and I won't bring up all the other real world things that are going on. There's all those things that do happen to working class people, where you have to, you might have just worked a 12-hour shift, and then you've got to go home and look after your kids, or Billy's got karate or whatever it might be. And, that he does sort of sum up that sort of working class northern UK aesthetic of, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, keep pushing forwards. Something bad happens, do your best to push through it. And he is sort of like the embodiment of that. And I definitely think, definitely not saying he doesn't deserve it, because, when he has ended up losing this year, most of the time it's been out of his control, or it's been because of something unfair happening. And I think, again, if things are gone a little differently, he could still be showcase champion now. He could be heavyweight champion already. So I definitely think it's deserved. If you were going to look at it on a piece of paper with wins and losses, maybe not. But in terms of if you've been there, if you watch the shows, if you follow Lucas Neon's journey, he absolutely deserves the opportunity to wrestle in the main event of the biggest show they've ever done. He deserves
he's been in main events before and won. Obviously, we talked about the Showcase Championship that he was able to finally wrest out of Two Bit's hands. I mean, so he's been able to do this in the main event. He's been able to rise to the occasion. So there might be something here that, maybe, just maybe, Lucas Neon can find a way. But Big Guns Joe, listen, definitely do not want to sleep on him, because look at what he's done over the past couple of years. When I think about wrestlers over the past 2 years on Sportzwire that we've had a chance to cover, even though we haven't had Big Guns Joe on, I think what Big Guns Joe has done in terms of putting himself out there, I mean, he's literally wrestled every weekend, even during COVID. He was probably one of the only handful of wrestlers during lockdowns that was out there wrestling somewhere. So Big Guns Joe, I mean, he just got that title. He's not going to let that title go very easily. So Lucas Neon's going to really have to dig deep, I think, and find a way. He's going to have to dig a little extra more inside of him, because Big Guns Joe is not going to let this title away easily.
No, and I think Lucas is going to have to put in a world-class performance if he wants to beat Joe. We know that Joe's capable of that. We've, like you said, we've seen it all over the country, in other countries as well, on the WWE Network, all over the place. That Joe has world-class quality, and obviously he's shown that, in KOW, he's shown it all over the place. So, Lucas is going to have to be on his A game, and when he is on his A game, and I was actually going to draw the parallel between his situation with Two Bit as well. So, the good shout there by yourself. But there are a lot of parallels there, that Lucas went after it and got beat down and beat down and beat down. And then finally, when his moment came, he sees that. And the question is this his moment? Is the 10th anniversary show his moment or not? And that's going to be the big question. If you're talking when they were left on themselves in the ring one-on-one, it's one apiece. It's even. So it's a tiebreaker in some ways. It's obviously, about what happened at Road to Gold. It's about, for Lucas, something he's been working for since he was literally 12 years old. When he came his first shows, when he started training. KOW is what, he's, other than WWE, I think I'm right in saying KOW was like, the first thing he's known really in wrestling. So, it's very personal for him.
I think he's known most in KOW. I know he's been in a company or two, but I think when it comes to KOW, Lucas Neon is most synonymous with this company.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just in terms of his journey as a fan, I think, there's the story of how his dad, saw one of our posters or our flyers and was like, oh, there's wrestling on in Barrow. And so they came and he loved it and they had a great time. And I don't know how long it was before they started coming to train, but it wasn't very long, I don't think, after our first show. And like say, literally from, 12 years old, he's a man now. He came as a not even a teenager. And
listen, him, Two-Bit, and Will Carter. I mean, they all grew up together. I mean, I guess we're not supposed to say this, well, actually, we have in the past. But I mean, they're all synonymous with this company and growing up in the company. And I think that's what's so important to that, and that's why it's going to be such an intriguing match here. And all these matches are going to be intriguing here. Certainly, of course, all of them. We're going to have here, of course, RPD and the Ronin Brian Aidenson knockout or tap out. The Vertigo ladder match between Ravy Davy, the Playboy Prince, Lance Rivera, the Wrestle Island champion, the War Machine, Craig Collins, and the returning Commissioner / Sheriff Steele, Keenan, and the Open Challenge, the Freak Show, and the Underclass. What a card. And, of course, for more information, Knockout W on Facebook, KO_wrestling, K_O_wrestling on Instagram. And, of course, you can go to ALP streams on Facebook and Twitter as well to find out more information. But before I get to closing thoughts and also a few other thoughts from you, I did want to bring up, speaking of up-and-comings, how's our Academy doing? I understand we have some Academy news maybe we want to talk about here on Sportswire Radio before we close here in a little while.
Yeah, most definitely. We're doing another one of our Academy shows. That's going to be this coming Wednesday. We'll be announcing that officially on the socials shortly. I'm just waiting on the graphics and that sort of thing so we can properly announce it. But yeah, so Wednesday evening, Hartington Street Methodist Church. That should be really good. Obviously, the Academy's been a huge thing for KOW. We've talked about numerous people tonight who've come through the Academy, and that's how they've started their journey. So it's been massive for us, and it really is where the next stars of KOW come from. We've been really happy with how that's gone since lockdown. I understand, and obviously, I'm going to be there as well because I always like to keep an eye on how people are coming along and how they're developing and that sort of thing. But from what I understand from all the reports I'm hearing, it looks like it's not going to be very long until we've potentially got our next batch of Academy graduates coming up potentially to the main roster. So we may well be seeing some of those faces on our main show soon. So if, you want to have the jump on that and you want to know who these people are and get a flavour of them, definitely come along. It's £1 on the door. It's an hour or so of family-friendly entertainment on a Wednesday evening. You're helping some young wrestlers get their reps in, get some experience. They're always fun, they're light-hearted. At KOW shows, we like to have fun, but there's an extra layer of fun on those shows because it is so much more relaxed, and we always enjoy putting them on. They're always a lot of fun, so definitely come check that out. And like I say, hopefully we will be seeing some new faces from the Academy on our main shows next year as well, which I know we're all very excited about because if you go back over the list of Academy graduates, Rick Marcus.
Oh, it's a big list. I mean, the Cumbrian Outlaw Rick Marcus, of course, and Commissioner Steele and Two-Bit, Will Carter, Lucas Neon. I mean,
Logan,
Dynamite Lee Dawson. I mean, it's a long list of current, former stars that have come through the Academy, and that's why it's so important to support the Academy here. And if you get a chance, please go out there. It's only £1. I mean, for £1, you can go out there and watch some up-and-coming stars who very well could be on Sportswire Radio, very well could be a KOW champion. You never know where they could be. This is where wrestling starts. And I always say this all the time here on Sportswire Radio. This is where wrestling lives. Yes, you want to focus on the big companies. Yes, all that stuff. But this is where it all starts. This is from the ground up. This is why you got to support great companies like KOW, which has literally been delivering a knockout since 2012. I think it's been more of a knockout, but I'll tell you what, whatever it is, whatever the term is, make sure you get out there and support this company. And I want to ask you a couple more questions before we get to closing thoughts here. And the first I want to ask you is, what do you want to say to anybody that's either coming next weekend or anybody that's considering after hearing this and is saying, you know what, maybe I got to go out to Cloud9 and Broward. It's my first time. I heard about ALP. I heard this card. And what do you want to say to those two camps?
I would say that I defy anyone to find a better value show for £7. That's what I would say. If you're going to come to a show, this is the perfect first one to come to. We've put so much work into it. All the wrestlers are going to be so hyped up and ready to put on the best performances they possibly can to come out on top. Like say, it's £7. In the economy nowadays, there's not a lot you can do for £7, especially that's family friendly. Cinema will probably cost you more than that. Most things.
Oh, don't even. I had a conversation about that here in the States with a friend of mine who listens to us, Anthony Finkel, and it was like, I'm supposed to renew my movie pass, which would be for the equivalent, would be about £20 per month or £21 per month. And, think about it. That's really not from what you guys are going to give. That's a phenomenal deal with what you guys are giving. Just go compare to a night out to the movies or going out to a bar. I mean, this is a far better experience and a far more affordable experience.
Yeah, and I'd also say if you are thinking of coming, if you are on the fence, or you're thinking I'm going to show up on the day, tickets really are selling very quickly. Up there with some of the best we've done in terms of how quickly they've been shifting. Things always pick up even more in the last week, which we're now almost in. So if you are thinking of coming, do try and get your tickets. Buy them on PayPal. I think we've got like 25 left via PayPal. Obviously, we can add more.
Wow.
But, we have to keep, we don't want to accidentally sell too many and then not be able to fit everyone in. But, they are really shifting. Like, say, so PayPal, TNT Records if you're in Barrow, Salt House
Love
Post
TNT
Office.
Records.
Yeah,
Love
TNT
TNT
Records. Those
Records.
guys are awesome. Salt House Post Office as well if you're in Barrow. If you're not in Barrow and you can't do PayPal or anything like that, do just get in touch with us and then we can sort something out, whether it be, paying another way, we can sort that out. That's fine. But yeah, definitely, if you do want to be there, we're looking at 200 people is what we're aiming for. We've had that number in before and it's pretty busy. Once, if we meet that point, we're then going to have to look at, do we think we can do more and, the viability of that. But like say, at the moment, it looks like it's going to be packed. Like say, we've broken a bunch of our records in terms of numbers and speed of stuff selling. So like say, it's a great card, 3 title matches, a ladder match, the knockout or tap out match. Obviously, we've broken it all down this evening. Some really great talent. Like Tom said, you may well be seeing the next WWE superstar, AEW superstar, somebody who ends up wrestling in Japan, who goes to Progress, it really is like, say, the grassroots, like you have grassroots bands who then, get signed by major labels and stuff. It's the same thing. So definitely, like I say, they're family friendly. They're always fun. We always get great feedback. It's a really good crowd. There's a lot of energy. If you've been to shows before, maybe, and, maybe it was, sometimes when things get put into the family friendly category, people have negative connotations. But, like Josh and Dom and the people have said from Pods Unknown and other people who've been to our shows, we try and make it where it will appeal to everyone. It's not just for kids, it's for everyone. We want everyone to enjoy it. We want stories and matches that everyone can engage in and enjoy. And like I say, it's a celebration of 10 years. It's to cap off the year. If you're going to come now. You'll get to see all this amazing matches, this amazing show, and then when we start 2023 and whatever the hell that's going to contain for KOW, you'll be all caught up.
Hey, it ain't too far away. Listen, I was on Sportzwire Radio when we announced you on Wednesday coming on with the guy Bentley who wrestles in some other companies, the LWF, GT Ministries, a number of other companies, and we said, wow, it's funny. I remember just speaking with you at the beginning of the year. Now, are you going to come on one more time before the end of the year? So it's kind of crazy that now I'm thinking about it. Just like with you, for example, I remember speaking with you in like early 2021, and now we're like Zooming and it's the end of 2022. So where does the time go? Time is definitely flying when you're having fun. But most importantly, please try to get out there. Get out there to Cloud9 in the Lounge. Just £7 only. Academy Show Wednesday. TNT Records, support them. But support all the great things that this company does. Because this is a company that it's not a company that's for profit. They're doing this because they care. They're doing this because they want to put on family-friendly entertainment for the community to give wrestlers an opportunity to connect with people like Louis, to connect with people that support us, like Mother Sue and the Neon family, and so many other people that have made KOW one of our favorite companies around here when it comes to our history in Sportswire Radio. We are so grateful, so thankful that ALP has given us yet another opportunity to talk about his company. So I want to ask you one more question before I get to closing thoughts, and always thank you as always. And when it comes to the card here, and our 10th anniversary, 10 years. When you started the first show back when, did you ever say to yourself, man, we're going to make it 10 years later? And what do the next 10 years have in store? So that's my last question to you.
Well, I have to say, wow, by the way, that like little bit you just said then like kind of summed up KOW better than I think I've ever managed to. So that was spot on. I was listening to you.
I don't think the BBG guy, knowing Chris Lappin, I don't think he did that. And I love the Parts Unknown guys because we play them on Sportswire from time to time. I don't think they could have did it as well as I did, I guess.
No, that was perfect. You summed it up really, really well. But yeah, no, I mean, when we did the first show, it was just we want to do a show and see how that goes, and then it became do a year, then it became okay, cool. We did a year, and nothing's gone horribly wrong, and nobody's got hurt, and it's going quite well, and it's one of those things where it starts small, from giant trees from little acorns grow, whatever the quote is. So yeah, it's mad. It really is. Like say when we started, it was just a bunch of friends and people who like professional wrestling who, were going to put a show on, and it's just evolved and changed and keep changing. In terms of the next 10 years, like just thinking about it is mad. If we go another 10 years, then it'll be half my life that I've been doing KOW. So put it like that, it's kind of crazy. But yeah, I mean, you almost like, wrote a perfect mission statement for us before. So just more of that, that's what we want to do. We love doing it. Like say, it is a passion project, we give up our time to do it, our energy, it's a lot of work, and we do it just because we genuinely love doing it. And nothing against anyone who is involved in wrestling for money, because that's absolutely fine. That's cool. Like,
yeah, there are some promoters that are able to do it, and we work with some companies that they're able to do it. God bless, but I think it's also that's why it's so important that I like to keep bringing you on, and Lucy will get back on, and some of the other talent, because you guys really do it because you guys care. It's not like you guys are getting rich off this, and you guys don't make any money at all from this. Isn't really something that you really do because you guys give back. And listen, like you said, God bless anybody that may do, but it's so different here with KOW. That's why I've always been such a strong supporter of what you guys do.
Yeah, and any money we make goes back into the company, and this is why we've been able to work with such great talent, is because of those building blocks we had at first, and then because those shows went well and we had some money, we're like, okay, cool, we can do this and we can do this, and we can this guy we can now bring in, and this person, and it's all just built from there. And like I say, that is exactly what it's about. I want to keep it with that reputation of being a family atmosphere. I want to keep it somewhere safe and friendly for wrestlers to work and get experience and earn a living, or even if they're not doing it full time, be part of their journey to maybe doing it for a living if that's what they want to do. And we want to keep telling really engaging stories that people enjoy with twists and turns. We want to keep bringing up the next generation of talent that's come from Barrow, because I think now partially because of KOW, there's people from the area who are doing bigger and better things, Chris Ridgway and 2-Bit. So yeah, very excited. Like I say, the 10th anniversary show, it's been a lot of work, and I'm going to enjoy it, and we're going to enjoy the aftermath of it, most definitely. And then, we'll reset. We'll look at next year, and like we always do, we'll look ahead to the next show, concentrate on the next show, and, keeping something that we think is special, in our hometown that we love very much, keeping that going, like you said, for the community, for the wrestlers, for everybody involved.
Absolutely. And again, these are reasons why you need to follow KOW, Knockout W on Facebook, KO_wrestling on Twitter, K_O_wrestling on Instagram, and also ALP streams on Twitter and Facebook. Make sure you support him. He does a lot of streaming on Twitch as well. So please make sure you support ALP. He's always been one of our favorites. That's why we really refer to him so lovingly as the heart and soul of KOW. He has done so much for this company, but also he cares so much about the talent, the opportunities that he gives speaks for itself. And that is why KOW has thrived into year 10 with their 10th year anniversary show coming up next Saturday at Cloud 9 in the Lounge. TNT Records, want to give them a shout out as well. You can buy more tickets, and we'll have more KOW coverage for sure next week with RPD, and maybe the unforgettable Andre Decker and Lucy, we will also get back on here. So we'll make sure we have more KOW coverage because, listen, next year's not that far away. We're going to be talking, I'm sure, about a March show or an April show, and it's going to be coming quicker than literally a New York minute. But my friend, your time is always precious, and I want to thank you so much for this opportunity. I like to give you the floor. Anything you want to plug, share, say with us on Sportswire Radio. And I can't thank you enough, and fire away, my friend.
Yeah, thanks very much once again, Tom, for having me on. I always have a great time talking to you. You've always got good questions and good insights, which obviously I really appreciate. And yeah, we've kind of talked about all, like say, get your tickets. If you're not able to come, you can always follow us. We'll have news going up. Hopefully, after the show, we might be able to get some matches out there as well. So, if you're not able to join us in person, then hopefully you'll get to, vicariously live through it a little bit later on. But yeah, like we said, you can follow us on the socials. Obviously, do get your tickets to come to the show. And if you can't come to our show because you're not in the area, if you're not in the UK, whatever it might be, there'll be local wrestling. Go and support them. There'll be people like us, who love wrestling, who are doing what they can to make a fun product near you. So yeah, support local wrestling, whether that be us or whether that be the LWF or GTM or whoever else you're nearby. So
There's
yeah,
so many companies out there at this point. I mean, we cover almost all of them at this point, and we try to give everybody a fair shot at this point. We're even doing some, I guess we said WC Wrestling Championship Entertainment here in the state of Wisconsin. So, I mean, at this point, I try to give everybody a shot. But most importantly, for the time being, the immediate time being, please make sure you support KOW. Make sure you support this great company for all the great things that it does. I mean, ALP, he really puts his heart and soul into this. I mean, his love of wrestling, his love for the community, his love for the talent really speaks for itself. It's certainly a very, very special relationship that the wrestling community has with Barrow. I've always thought, again, just like Morecambe, we talk about Bradford, we talk about Manchester, we talk about Lancashire, all these great places, but in Barrow, it's a little more special. Make sure if you can. If I had that opportunity, I'd be there in Barrow. I'd be there at Cloud 9 in the Lounge. But in the meantime, I'm going to be covering it. Cannot wait for it. Cannot wait to talk with RPD, Brian Aidenson, who knows who else what. But my friend, I can't thank you enough. And congratulations, by the way, making it to 10 years. It is no easy feat to have made it to 10 years. That is a great accomplishment. Anybody, they say the average business only lasts between 3 and 4 years. So the fact that a wrestling company, think about this, ladies and gentlemen, ECW didn't last 10 years. WCW didn't last 10 years. But KOW has lasted 10 years. And a rising tide will always lift all boats. And KOW's boat is always going to be lifted by the people like ALP, Lucas Neon, Keenan, RPD, Brian Aidenson, Commissioner Steele in his return, Lucy, Louise, never forget about Louise, Mother Sue, it's a long list, The Freak Show, The Underclass, you name them. They may or may not like us, but they're always going to be special here on Sportswire. My friend, I can't thank you enough. I'm looking forward to speaking with you very soon. After the show, we'll break it down and much, much more. And good luck, congratulations, and can't wait to speak with you for year 20. And we look forward to seeing the card and everything else. And thank you, as always, for giving us this opportunity to speak about this great company called KOW.
Thanks very much, Tom, and thanks for all your contributions to KOW as well. It's your support of us is appreciated as well, so thanks very much for that too. And I look forward to speaking to you more about KOW in the near future, I'm sure.
You'll definitely be back on. We'll have more KOW coverage. But in the meantime, if you are on sportnarium.com/player, you'll go back to your regularly scheduled program. We'll have on a marathon of shows from the sit-down marks as they'll break down AEW, WWE, SmackDown, you name it, they'll break it down. And I'll be back live here 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time covering all the latest happenings here in the world of sports. Plus, we'll have more wrestling coverage tomorrow, I'd say about between 11:30 and 11:45 Eastern Time with Wrestling Championship Entertainment's JDT and Craven Rage. But in the meantime, we were here with the booker and promoter, the heart and soul of KOW ALP, getting us ready here for the 10th year anniversary show coming up next Saturday at Cloud 9 The Lounge, which will feature the main event for the KOW World Championship, Big Guns Joe and Lucas Neon in his final title match. Knockout or tap out, RPD and the Ronin Brian Aidenson. The Vertigo match between Sheriff Commissioner Steele, Ravy Davy, the Playboy Prince Lance Rivera, the Wrestle Island World Champion, and the former two-time World Champion Craig Collins. So that'll be the vertical ladder match with Keenan and a mystery opponent for the Showcase Championship. And for those tag team titles, it'll be the Freak Show and the Underclass. Make sure you get out there, buy a ticket, PayPal, you name it, TNT Records, go do it. I am the host of the Sports Report, the station manager of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. Thank you so much. Thank you, ALP. We were here on the number one global radio station that is Sportswire Radio.